truck's guts.
Welcome back to the channel, Clooney Garage fans, and for those of you that are new to the channel, a big welcome to you, and I hope you enjoy our series of videos. And in 2025, it's going to be bigger than better than ever here on the channel. We've got a bunch of new VE and VF content to share with you, including today's video where we'll look at how do you replace your engine, what the options are, and we'll go forward from there. We're going to have other videos in this series too around supercharging versus turbocharging, looking at all things suspension mods and how you can get the best lap time in your VE, VF when you take it to the track. Hey, but let's get back to today's video. Today's video is all about LS engine option. And this is particularly important if you are looking at replacing or upgrading your current V8 engine. Apologies for all our 6-cylinder alloy tech fans out there. This ain't a video for you, it's only about V8. So LS engines are a fantastic engine and they're used in a heap of different engine swaps and conversions for many more models, more than just Commodores. But in today's video we'll only talk about it from a VE and VF perspective, and you might be thinking, these cars have still got relatively new engines and LS is still a fairly new technology. Well, these cars are getting on a bit. So let's take a look at why you would be replacing your VE, VF, V8 engine. Now, 2006 when the VE first came out, 2013 when the VF came out, many of them have got over 200,000 kilometers now. So now's, they might be using a bit of oil, you might be getting a bit of a piston slap. Previous owner, God bless them, may not have done all the oil changes. And sometimes you get this notorious lifter tick that we've covered in a previous video. So preventative maintenance is sometimes your friend here. Or you might just be out wanting more horsepower, and that's what many of us want to do for either street racetrack applications. Either way, it might be time to have a look at upgrading your engine. Let's take a bit of a step back in time about the VE Commodore to start with. Released in 2006 under the Series 1, under the billion-dollar baby platform, the Zeta, released by General Motors and Holden here in Australia. Pontiac G8 in the US. Came out with a couple of different variants of LS engines. They came out with the L98 for the earlier Series 1 6-litre Gen 4 platform, and then in the later Series 2s they came out with an L77. There is an L76 in there as well for some automatic variants as well. Many of these engines have got the displacement on demand AFM hardware fitted, and that's notorious for failing. So again, as I mentioned, this could be a reason that you're looking to upgrade your engine if you've got that fitted. But these put out about 270 kilowatts, about 530 newton meters of torque, so that they're not hugely powerful engines, but they're still pretty good compared to the old iron line V8 engines. In Series 2 VEs, they came out with the L77, which then carried on to the VFs, which I'll talk about. And that basically just meant you could run flex fuel. Let's take a look at VF Commodores, and we've got our special star on the channel here, young Clooney. Came out in 2013 all the way through to 2017 when they stopped production here in Australia. Come out with a couple of different variants, the L77 for the Series 1s, and then the LS3, the 6.2 litre for the later Series 2s, and that's a pretty special motor sourced out of the Corvette. More power than the 270 kilowatts, more like 317 kilowatts for the LS3 and about 550 newton meters. And of course no displacement on demand. We have looked at all the different options out there to replace your LS engine in your VE, VF Commodore, and it basically comes down to three options. You can either go a wrecker engine and get one and fit it yourself, or get a mechanic to fit it, or Facebook Marketplace, God bless its cotton socks, eBay, or a number of wreckers have got their own websites. You can contact them directly. That is an option. We have done that. Personal experience with that option. Option number 2 is a crate engine. You go to a company like Hallmark, Holden Spares, or if you look at Eagle Auto Parts as well. There's a couple of other online distributors where you can actually get a crate engine. It literally comes in a crate and brand new OEM specifications, not opened, you put it in. Or option number 3, custom build. And it could be your engine, or you could buy a custom built engine off the shelf, or choose your own adventure, and we'll talk a lot about that. So those are the big 3 options. Let's get stuck into option number 1, the wrecker option. With the wrecker option, as I mentioned, this is probably the cheapest option, and we've been doing a bit of research for you guys out there so you can have a look at what sort of ballpark in your budgets and all the rest of it. You can get a complete engine from a wreck or a statutory rider with the loom, ECU, accelerator pedal, all the stuff you need to throw it into your Commodore for around about $6,000 for an M98. They go upwards from there, and you can, they start to bumper up around 8 or 9 for really low kilometer versions. But 5,000 to 6,000 is probably the lowest you'll find one, but they will have a lot of kilometres on them. You know, anywhere from 180, 220, etc. So then you've got to start to think about, is this cheap option really worth it? And for some people who just want to throw it in and keep their Commodore going for another 20, 30, 40,000 kilometres, this could be a very viable option. But buyer beware on this particular option. You don't know the service history in many cases of these wrecker engines, particularly if the car engine is out of the car. Sometimes you don't know if it's already got some internal damage. It could have lifted a head. It could have, you know, other coolant issues. So you don't know whether or not this wrecker engine has actually got the DoD delete kit fitted, or if it's actually had a catastrophic lifter failure or any other failure by that matter, even if the engine's out of the car. So buyer beware when looking at these wrecker engines. If you can, the best option is to hear it running. That's what we did when we picked up our wrecker engine. Get it from a reputable wrecker, hopefully with a warranty as well if it's installed by an authorised mechanic. We picked ours up, as I mentioned, for about $6,000 a couple of years ago. The prices have gone up since then, but we got a really nice statutory write-off engine out of an L77 VF Commodore. 120,000 kilometres for $6,000 is pretty good value in my book. And yeah, we picked it up down in Canberra, and that's the basis of our next custom build. So definitely a viable option going down the wrecker engine path. Option number 2, the crate engine. Sport for choice here a little bit with crate engines. There's a lot of them, and unfortunately, however, though, the prices have gone really, have increased over the last couple of years, particularly since the pandemic. So most crate engines are available for the same sort of engines that are already in your Commodore, including now you can start to get the LT1 engines that are out of the Commodore. They're about $15,500 as well, and that could be an option if you're looking to go down that path. We don't have any personal experience with the later LT engines, but they're an option nonetheless. If you're getting really adventurous and you want to head down the LS upgrade path and have some real power, you can actually start to look at the LSA, the 6.2 litre supercharged option as it comes out in the HSV GTS. We've got personal experience of putting one of these in a VF Series 1 Redline, and that was a lot of fun. Again, check your engineering requirements and your registration, your insurances around that sort of engine upgrade. Not really a like for like, but with engineer's certification, it's a really interesting way to go, and very cost effective too. They have gone up a lot though, these crate engines, the LSAs. They are now about $28,000. I can remember they were $13,000, $14,000 a couple of years ago when we did our conversion. Crate options that are no longer available, unfortunately, are things like the LS7 that came out in the W427. We bought a crate engine that was an ex-W427 warranty engine, but unfortunately in 2022, they're no longer available even as a crate engine from the US. So unfortunately that option's off the table. What to watch for when you're looking at a crate engine? Well, the first thing is some of these crate engines have been sitting around for a long time. So you make sure you get a crate that isn't damaged on the outside or been dropped from a forklift or anything like that. Make sure that it's been stored correctly in plastic. Some of these places don't have the world's best condensation or humidity control. Ideally, if you buy it from a reputable wholesaler, somewhere like Walmart, all that's sort of covered. But yeah, if you're sort of buying it off the back of a truck, buyer beware on these crate engines as well. The thing is, when you're looking at these crate engines, is you will have to do all the implementation and installation yourself, but it is a bit of a turnkey solution. But all things considered, many of them don't come with ECUs and looms. You've got to bring that out of your donor car. But if you've got an existing LS engine sitting in your engine bay, hopefully you won't have pulled the loom and ECU out. It should just be a drop and replace. This is a great option for you if your Commodore is still your daily driver, you want reliability, and this will go for another 200,000 kilometers. So this is a really good option, cost effective. It's not the mental dollars that we're talking about in the custom builds, and it could be a very viable option. All right, option number 3, the world is your oyster, custom build. We've got personal experience and lived experiences down this path, and it's not for the faint-hearted. Having said that, there are different pathways here. So I'll talk about three different sort of pathways that might be relevant for you. First pathway, what if you want to keep your Commodore as a very streetable, daily, semi-driven, performance type vehicle, but you want a bit of a custom feel to it, you know, with heads, exhaust, tune, all that sort of good stuff. Maybe a camshaft is up your alley as well. Same time, you might want to do some preventive maintenance around cam bearings, and you know, you want to be looking at piston rings and all that sort of good stuff, oil cooling, and definitely the displacement on demand delete. That is a non-negotiable. So if you're talking about heads, cam, and nothing too out of the ordinary, and retaining potentially your pistons and rods and crank, but giving it a real freshen up, you're probably looking somewhere in the order of $15,000 to $25,000. Now, people think that's a lot of money, but a lot of the machine work goes into these things. There's no point just bolting bits in and hoping they work. There is a bit of work in a custom build, but again, a little bit more expensive than going the crate engine route, but you're getting some goodies and better internals and obviously a lot more power as well. Option number two on this custom sort of build path is if you want to start looking at either stroking, getting more capacity out of the engine and keeping it normally aspirated, as well as doing your things like your heads and your cam and so on. Some interesting and some fairly common stroked capacities we're talking about here are 408, 416, 427. Around that LS3 based platform seems to be the sweet spot as well. So again, that will require a stroker kit and potentially some machining and work done to get all the clearances right for the bigger bore and stroke. Again, this starts heading into the territory of $26,000 to $50,000. I've got some reputable suppliers. I'll put in the link in the description below, and some images that I'm flashing up here as well. Now you're starting to talk about pistons, crank, machine work, align honing, getting all your balancing done. It's a lot of machine work. It's not just plug and play. There is a fair bit of work involved down this path, but you have a pretty wild custom built engine at the end of it, nearing 7 litres in capacity too, so it'll be a torque monster. Our final option down the custom build path is not for the faint-hearted, and that's if you want to go big cubes and go forced induction. And that means you've got to really start looking at the engine block as the basis of your platform, Dart LS Next blocks are sort of the block of choice, strengthen bores if you want to go big boost, even cast iron blocks if you want to head down that path as well. Now you're starting to talk about matching all the engine components to your application, whether it be turbocharged or supercharged or the giggle gas as well. You're talking big dollars down here, and you can get some off-the-shelf engine packages, and they start for a 7 litre built engine, but a long engine, so not all the components, about $45,000. So again, we're starting to near into the upper echelon of people's budgets here. And then once you start talking about tuning and assembly and all the other bits you need, you might be talking close to 80, 90. So again, you may not have that sort of money to throw at your Holden. Some people do, and that's why it's an option for them as well. Okay, so wrapping up today's video, and hopefully it's been informative. I've laid out the options there. Now it's time for you to do your research. You need to work out what is the purpose of your Commodore and what are you going to be using it for the next 10 years? Because ideally doing an engine swap at this point of your car's life, you don't want to be keeping it for 12 months and then getting rid of it. This is a big investment. So what's the purpose that you're going to be using your Commodore for? Is it daily driven street duties? Is it more of a weekend warrior that you want some real grunt on the mumbo pedal? Or are you starting to head to the racetrack, drag strips, or is that your thing? So you need to work out your purpose, because that will guide you on those 3 options that I talked. Next, set a budget. And whatever your budget is, it'll be double that. By the time you then take it and get it tuned and add all the extra bits to it, then you're starting to look at oil coolers and fuel systems and all that. Whatever your budget is, times it by 2. Personal experience. And finally, this is not the time to scrimp on all the other bits in your build, because getting the heart and lungs of your VF Commodore or your VE right, you don't want to scrimp on the other bits. So now might be the time to look at that oil cooler. Now might be the time to look at that bigger fuel system if you want to run E85. Now might be the time to start to really look at the clutch and all the rest of it. Or if you're running an automatic, do you upgrade your Storley and all that sort of stuff too. So again, this is not the time to go tight on the other bits. Now's the time to button down and make sure that your investment in your engine will pay off. Final thoughts on today's video. Leave me some comments on the engine swaps that you have done, or the engine options that you have explored for your VE/VF. As I mentioned in the intro and throughout the video, We've done the wrecker option, we've done the crate engine, and we've done the built engine. So we've got lived experiences with all three, and all three have been very different, and we're better for it, and we're sharing this video with every one of you to hopefully make sure that your VE and VF Commodore engine journey is a good one. Catch you later.